So HTML, just like the theories, these guys did a good work. That is why I said you guys should use these guys. There are some few video tutorials, but they'll just say it and pass, and you may not really get it like reading it. So I prefer reading some of these theories. They are very, very important. Now, HTML stands for Hypertext Markup Language. It's not really a programming language. It is a markup language. So it is it is close to programming but not really programming because you cannot do condition like if, you cannot do a loop, you cannot do a lot of things with HTML. So HTML is not a programming language, it's a markup language, and it has some rules and regulation that if you use the language and write things in a particular way, the browser will be able to interpret that markup language, and it will display what you have written in a good format, removing the elements and then representing it visually. So um so that is just what HTML means. And HTML is the building block, like is the basic building block of web. That is running on a browser mainly HTML. The building block of web. So that is what makes HTML to be very, very powerful. Most of the applications that we are using these days are either mobile or web. You get it now. And so there is a high chance that if you are a software developer, you you will be building applications for the web. You will- The probability of avoiding it is small. So that is why it's good to know HTML. All right. So HTML is very, very simple. There are just few rules and regulations that you need to follow. And once you follow that rules and regulation, you have created an HTML document. This is an example, for instance. In this example, I'm going to quickly explain it for us. This example here, can you see it? If you can't see, just let me know. So, okay, somebody is waiting. Okay. Um, so HTML, this is a simple HTML document, right? I'm going to explain it line by line, but to do that, I will I will just create a simple demo project for this class. I have practice here. So let me open here with code and let me open an existing HTML. I think it's big enough now. All right, so don't mind me, there are a lot of shortcuts, so with time you'll get to learn them. Now, this is a simple HTML document. I will explain each line to you. Don't try to cram, just try to understand. I know some of us know this already, but I just want to make emphasis. This first line, line 1, is describing the version of HTML. In those days, we used to have HTML3, HTML2, HTML4. This IDOC type was very important because the browser need to know the version of HTML so that it can render it. Maybe it will know the right interpreter to use to interpret it. But right now, I think for a long time now, we've been using HTML5, and HTML5 becomes the standard HTML, so that we are not expecting any HTML6. So in that case, we decided the W3C consortium, that is the body responsible for doing all this standard, they decided to just put HTML instead of HTML5. So this doc type is like the version. They will get it now. So almost every HTML document starts with this version. You just put HTML means it is the latest version. So don't worry yourself with that one. It's like default. You see, I didn't do anything. There is a shortcut. Immediately I put Shift 1 that shows this thing. I can just press tab and it will populate this for me. So it means these things are too basic for you to worry yourself about. Just know what it means. That is the most important thing. If you know what something means, when you want to use it, you can Google it. Do you get it now? So don't try to memorize everything, cram everything. No, it doesn't work like that. There's no way, like with my how many years of coding, there are a lot of basic things that I don't know, but I know what they mean. I know how to use them. But the syntax, I don't know. So I will go and Google it. Yesterday, I just Google how to use jQuery to do one very basic thing. There's no crime there. So just don't worry if you forget some basic things. What, how do they spell this thing? How do they write this thing? All those things is not important. It is understanding it is more important. That is just one thing. So this line one is the version. Line two is the beginning of your HTML. Now, this markup language just have basic rules. There is this angle bracket, this open and close angle bracket. Those things is what wrap your elements. We call it elements or tag. You get it now. So this angle bracket is what the name, this is the name of the tag head, and then it will be wrapped by this angle bracket. Now these elements, most of them have opening and closing elements. So the opening means where the head begins, and then the closing means where the head ends. So it means in this case, the head starts here and it ends here. And everything in between it is called the children or descendants. So everything here, these ones now are what? The children of head. So it's just like a tree. So the head is so what they are doing here is they are nesting. You know, nesting is when you have something inside another one. So anything that is inside the head is the children or descendants of head. That is just it. So the HTML, this one that is HTML, this is the main HTML element. That is what tells your browser that this is a HTML page. And then this lang here you are seeing here, lang is an attribute. What is an attribute? An attribute is a property that can be used to further describe your elements. Of course, we can put this HTML element without that lang, right? And it will still work. But we want to give it further description. We know it is HTML, but we want to give it, it's just like giving it is like an adjective, or I'm trying to look for some. You are trying to give it a property. If you say, I am a man, that is okay, right? But now, if you begin to describe that I am 10 years old, I am 5 feet high, I am brown in color, those are my properties, right? You are trying to describe me in details, isn't it? So that is what an attribute means. An attribute tries to describe that element in details, or it is a kind of way of adding more description of properties um, to an element. So attributes are very powerful. How do you add an attribute? You add an attribute by the attribute will have to be in the opening element before the final angle bracket. So you see, immediately we type the opening angle bracket, we type HTML, then we give space.
Then we can put the attribute. Right now, the name of this attribute is lang. Lang is a short form for language, right? If you are using Visual Studio, it helps a lot, Visual Studio Code. Why? Because if you carry your mouse on top of anything, it will even explain it for you. So this one is what? The language attribute. It say helps define the language of an element. Do you see it now? So now we are saying language equal to en. Who can tell me what en means? English. That is it. So I dey tell people say Oyibo no be winch. It's not like they do this thing so that only them can know it or no. These things are what they call standard. There's an organization that is doing this thing, and they are doing it in such a way that everybody should be able to remember it easily. So lang is just a short form for language. And then you have to put equal to, because you can't just say lang and then just put something. No. So if you want to read your code, anything you are writing, I always tell people try to read it. If it doesn't make sense when you even read it with your ear, you read it loud. Like read what you are writing. It's not magic. Even in maths, your formula, you can read it. The same thing with coding. As you are coding, try to read it. If I'm the one writing the want to read this thing, I will say, okay, this is a HTML document. Of course, line one, this is the document version, doc type, which is the document version, and this one document version is version 5. Of course, I know because they write HTML. Line 2, this is the opening of my HTML. Do you get the opening tag of my HTML? It has language of English. Do you see that I've read it? And then I go to line 3. Line 3 is the opening of the head. Line 4 is what? Is a child of the head, and it is called meta. And the meta have what? Char set. Char set is like the character coding, and this one is UTF-8. Some of these things, basics, computer background may help you to know what it means, but don't worry yourself if you don't know what it means. Then line 5 is also a child of head. You see, if you are using a code editor like this, it helps you because it arranges it in a nested format. The way now all these ones are indented, they give space to show you that meta 5, 4, 5, and 6 line is under head. Do you see the way it's arranged? So it's not a mistake, it's intentional. Now, line 7 is where the heading end. Then line 8, beginning of body. Line 10, end of body. Line 11 is what? Is the closing tag of your HTML. So this guy did not even design it well. So my browser have, in my own editor, I put it to format on save. So I just press Ctrl X and the thing formatted better. Why did it format it better for me is because the first one was not even perfect. Everything is supposed to be inside HTML. Can you see it now? So everything is inside HTML element. This is the opening and closing of HTML. So everything, so your HTML document starts with HTML and ends with HTML. Just know that the ending one always have slash before the name. That is just the difference. Good. And then the head now have these children. It doesn't mean that there is freedom or you can add as many children as you want. You can remove any element, you can delete, you can add as much as you can. And most of the children that have, most of the elements that have opening and close, by default, they can accept children. There are some element that doesn't have opening and close, like this meta in line 4. You see, they just put the opening, they write meta, they give it an attribute of child set to F8, and then they just put slash, and that is the end. There's no any closing, unlike the head. Why? Because the meta is not supposed to have a children, any child inside it. But the title here is different. The title have opening and closing, and anything in between it is either the children or the content. Title by default doesn't also allow any, by default I don't know, but I don't think it allowed any children, because title is just supposed to just contain a text. This text is what we call the content. And you see this browser, this editor you are using, if you are very careful, it will help you to avoid a lot of errors, because the color you are seeing here matter. White is for content. This dark blue is for element name. This light blue is for attribute. And then this, is it orange or burnt orange, is for attributes. So if you do mistake now, if I remove this guy now, you see everything scattered. Why? Because I did not close the name UTF-8. So all these things are, they are rules that help you. If you say language equal to, then you put apostrophe. Apostrophe, now you are telling it that I want to type the language. Of course, if you type the language, you have to end it by putting another apostrophe. Else, you see, this guy is assuming that the language continue till line 4, till where it meets the next apostrophe. So computer is not a winch. There's an interpreter here that is reading what you are writing, and it's reading it line by line. It will read line 1 and know that this is the document type. Line 2, this is the beginning of HTML, and I have language which is equal to. Then where this opening apostrophe, the first apostrophe, it assumes that is the beginning of the language. And it will assume everything in between is the name of the language until it meets another apostrophe. That will now mark the end of the language. That is why you see the color here all down to this point is now orange. So it's not a mistake, because they assume when you start something, you have to put the end. The closing apostrophe is meaning that this is the end of this. Now, there are times that your attributes may be more than one, like this content now in line 5. Viewport is just a single value, right? Meta name viewport, which is fine. Now, the content, you see this guy have more than one attribute to it. Has a name, which we have defined it, and it end here, right? This is one attribute, which is name, and this is the value viewport. Now, we have another attribute. You see they give space and they write another attribute. What? Content. And the content has more than one value. The content has the width, which is equal to device width. Now they now put comma, and then they put another value again, initial scale, which is equal to 1.0. So these are basic rule, but at the end of it, content is the attribute name, and then everything from here till where you meet the next uh, apostrophe is going to be assumed that that is the value of content. So these are very basic rules that we should know, and so that when we are debugging, we have issue, we will know where the issue is coming from. HTML is permissible, because even when you forget to put this thing, it may not break. Though my editor is telling me there's an error, I can see red here, but it will still work, but it will not give you the expected results sometimes. So that is why if there's an error, you save it, you go and refresh in your browser, it will still work. It will not tell you that there's an error, but it will not be displaying what you expect it to display. And then you will not be angry, I don't do this thing, no, they work the way I they do, I they follow the exactly wetin the guy they do. I mean I do. No, it's not exactly. You made a little mistake somewhere that you don't know, and you expect it to show maybe something, and it's not showing that thing. So you have to look at your code. If you are using an editor like this one, you may see a red somewhere that will help you. The red doesn't mean that the error is in that red. Oh. It means that the error may be somewhere. So you have to trace where the error is. Like this one, and it's showing red here. But actually, the mistake was in line 2. I forgot to close the English. So try to what? Trace where So sometimes it's good to read it line by line, then you may see where you made mistake. Is anyone following me? Hello, I just need one of the two persons to respond. Any question? Any questions so far? Any question? All right, so let's continue. So I'm just trying to explain what is an element, what is an attribute, and what is the attribute value, and what are the little rules and regulations you should. Somebody should put off his mic. And what is the little rules and regulations you must take note, and how you can make your life easier using an editor like Visual Studio Code, and some of the little things you should take note of. Now let me go ahead to explain how some of these elements work. Everything in HTML, I told you, HTML is just a way of saying, hey, I am the HTML. Everything inside me is my children or descendants. Good. The head here doesn't show in your body. So let me render this hello.html. Let me open it in my browser. So it's just for you to save it and open it in your browser. So right now it's empty, which is correct because I didn't type anything. But if I carry my mouse up, you see document. Let me change the title so that you know that it's not my first page, and save it. Then I go and refresh. And then I put my mouse on top. You see my first page is showing, right? So all these websites you are seeing and they are having title at the top is because they put a title, and that title is in between, is inside the head element. So the head element is, it contains title of your web page. The title will not show. Don't mistake it that the title will be in the body. No, it's just like the title of the tab when you are browsing. And then it contains what we call metadata. Metadata are extra information that helps the browser to understand more about your website. Don't worry yourself about them. There are so many metadata. So just know that metadata is giving the browser extra information about your website. It will not really show, but some of them have impact in the entire site. So that is just it. So what we actually show in this white space now you are seeing is anything that is inside the body. So all the design and most of what you'll be doing will be inside the body. So the body will contain everything. Now the body now, there are a lot of elements in HTML. Don't worry yourself, you may not know all of them by heart, but the few of them I will explain is we have the header elements, right? The header element is just like when you are typing your document, what is always at the top of your letter headed document, they also assume is the header. So header will contain the nav, for instance, and then it will contain other things as well. You will get it now. Nav means nav bar. That is just it. So we have the header. Just know that the meaning is closely tied to the name. Header is actually a header. It is not a must for you to use header. You can use a div and then put your nav inside your links on in the div and arrange it. It will still work. But that is where the semantic meaning, that is the semantic of your element is important. If you use header and you are doing your SEO, that is Google is searching your website, it will prefer what is in the header will always be assumed that okay, this is the main topic. And then we also have the main, a main tag. Main is just like in an article. I wish I can see a simple site. Um, don't know if. I wanted to see if I can get a simple article site to show us, but it will take my time. Just let's look at it. So main is going to be assumed after the header. They assume that every other thing that is below the header should be part of your main. I mean, the main thing that your web page is supposed to show the users. If it's a news site, then the main should be the news article, right? Then we have aside. Aside is what is at the side. Okay, let me just go to Twitter quickly. So in Twitter is a little bit different. So I can just say these things here is the aside. Most of the time, site used to have two aside, maybe left and right. Then this center one now is the main. And then this home, this one at the top that is not moving, is part of the header. And then we also have footer. So these days people are using infinite screw, so they don't usually use footer. But this guy here can be assumed to be the footer or something. But most other side like these guys, I believe they should have a footer. So this section at the bottom is the footer. So apart from their side, we also have footer. You see it now. Why am I telling us this? Is because you can use div to do so many things. As a beginner, we always use div and span. At this stage, I expect most of us to know the difference between div and span. So div will always occupy the entire, will be a block, will be in block display, while span will only occupy the space that it needed. If you don't know that, don't worry. So you can use div and span to do a lot of things, but using the semantic meaning of an element helps you a lot. So if I want to design a website, for instance, I can decide that this will be the header. After the header, I can come and do the main. After the main, I can do what? The aside. After the aside, then I can do the word footer. So basically, I structure my site. Uh, Basically, I've structured my site. Okay, this is the heading, this is the main, this is the aside, this is the footer. That way, the browser will understand the structure of your page. The main can contain a lot of div and a lot of things, but you just like you first of all break it into basic skeletal structure. Do we get it now? So just like in a human being, you have your head, you have your main body, your aside can be your left and right arms, and then your footer can be your leg. So you just picture it like that. So the same thing is applicable even in websites. And so I can quickly just say pictorially, I don't know why this guy has on that to draw a graph. All right, so that is just the first introduction. So in the heading, I can have the H1. Now H1 also stands for heading, and 1 is the biggest heading. So I can say, welcome to my blog page. And ideally, you should save it and then you go and refresh to see what you've done, right? So you see now it's showing. That is because it's part of the body and it's now showing in the body. Now that should be my header. Then in my main, I can decide to use a paragraph or I can use a subheader. So instead of using H1, don't use H1 just because of sizing. That is what I'm trying to explain here. H1 is not used for sizing, even though it will look big. If you want something to look big, use CSS to give it what the actual size you want. So don't say because you want something to look big and then you will use H1. If you want it to look small, you will use H6. It's not right because there is a meaning to it. If you use in this your first one now, you use H6, Google will not know that this is supposed to be the heading, or you use a div. I can use a div here and to still work, right? I can use a div and then I'll give it a style of font size H1 should be close to 30 pieces, right? If I save and refresh, you see it still works. It looks big, right? But the browser will not know. Why? Because if I search for Joseph, for instance, it will bring a lot of suggestions. Now, this suggestion that Google is bringing is picking this main title, is assuming it will look for the website, and maybe if there is a H1, it will assume the H1 is the title of that website. That is why you shouldn't just use this element randomly. So the rule here is don't use H1 because you want your text to look big. It has a meaning. Use H1 if that thing is the main heading of that page, or if it is a section, then is the main heading. But you can also use the other H for what? Subheader. It's just like when you are writing a document with your hand. The main topic in biology, you are studying genetics. The main genetics will be big at the top. Then you can now write have what? Subheading inside that genetic, right? Maybe DNA and other thing will be a subheading. It's the same way when you are doing your coding. Follow those rules. So this main now can have a section. There is also an element called section. Maybe the main can have different sections. So this section now have a subheading, so I can use H2 here because it's the next subheading. You understand? And this one will now be what? Latest blog. And then there can be another section for H2 again, which is old blogs. So you see here now, I'm not spending more time thinking about code. I'm thinking of what? The structure. It's just like you are building a house. You should what? Think about the structure, not just you want to build a house and then you put 6-inch block down, put 9-inch block on top, put beam anywhere. Just assume that yeah, sometimes you can build it, but it will be what? Fragile, and anything can break it, it will scatter. So that is why take your time to know that these things have meaning. And that is why sometimes if you want to do anything, it's advisable that I'm asking for a blank. This guy is giving me grid. Okay. I don't know if I can close this grid. All right. So sometimes why I open this is to show us a practical. Let's assume this is our web page. This is the web page. And they say you should build a blog post, right? You should first of all picture it. Sometimes those days I know I used to draw this thing with hand. Draw it like this in a sheet of paper, and then you say this is the heading. And then you can decide to say, okay, after I do the heading, I will come and do the aside. This should be the aside. This is the aside. I don't know why this guy didn't misbehave. This is the aside, and then this will now be maybe another aside. This will now be another aside, right? And then this will now be the main will now be in the center. The main can be here, and then the footer can be at the bottom. This is what we call basic structure of a traditional web page. When you picture these things like this, it helps you. If you go to W3C, for example, now you can break this site into the same thing I just did. All these ones here now, they are the header. This nav bar, this logo, everything here is part of the header, which looks like this one at the top, right? And then everything, this side now is the aside. This is another aside for advert. So you can say that is the two aside. You can say that is the two aside. And then the main thing now that you are browsing this site for is this content, which is what? The main, which is the main here. And then when you scroll to the end, you will now see what? The footer. So this is like the traditional structure of a website. And a website is always there's what we call the block structure. I don't know if they explain it later on. They will tell you that an element, each element has a shape of a block. It's like a block. Some of them occupy the whole row, while some doesn't occupy the whole row, but they are all in form of a block. So picture them as if each element is a block. If you see it that way, it helps you, you can visualize what you are even doing. All right, so I just want to explain this. I believe some of us know it, but the main thing to catch here is don't just use div or use a meaningful element name. Just as here, I'm using header, h1, main, section. So at the beginning, you can just decide, even though you have not built everything, just first of all, do the skeleton of your site like this. You see, I've done the skeleton without actually coding each section. So I can now take my time and say, okay, I'll use today to work on only the header, trying to create the nav bar and all those things, right? Then the next day, I can work on the outside. The next day, I can work on the footer. Another day, I can work on the main. But at first, at the beginning, I've already structured my code. It's just like building a house. You first of all design it, do the foundation, and then you can decide to start building one section first. It's the same thing here. So use meaningful element name. That is one. The next thing I want to explain is okay. I think we have our header here, H1. We have two sections. So let me save and refresh. So you can see everything is just appearing line by line. The way you can inspect what is on the browser, the code in the browser, by pressing F12, and then it will open this window. This window is called Developer Console. This is where, as a developer, you can see your code and you can also troubleshoot your HTML from here. Not only HTML, even JavaScript and CSS. Now, if you come to elements, element is like it will show you the visual representation of your, like the exact code that produces what is in this site. For any website, if you go, you will be able to see the code that is producing it. And if you carry your cursor, this HTML now, you see everything is highlighted because it's the parent of everything. If you carry your cursor to the head, nothing will be highlighted because the head is not supposed to show in the body. Then if you come to the body, everything is highlighted. The body have a header. Do you see it now? You see, as I carry my cursor to header, only header is highlighted. And it's showing me that the header is occupying the entire row. Now, if I come to main, main is occupying the entire row too. Aside doesn't have any content, so it will not show. Footer, the same thing. It doesn't have any content. It will not also show. All right. Um, these people joining are distracting me. Okay. All right. So that is what you should know, that by default, an element, most of them are block. Their display type is block. They occupy the entire row. And they are going to be one, they are going to cascade. The first one will be at the top, followed by the second one is line by line, the way it is. Now, if you open header, then header has a child of H1. You see, as I carry my mouse on H1, observe a lot of things have meaning. The color here have meaning. You see, as it's to be difficult to carry my mouse to show you, but just look at this header that is highlighted at the top, right? Welcome to my new blog page. You see, there is an orange color at the top and bottom. That orange color at the top and bottom is telling you the padding. So if I click on it, for instance, you look at this side, you can see the style that an element have. So there is what we call default styling for each element that the browser will apply. Head H1, for instance, we have a default style, and this is the default styling, even without you adding CSS. It comes with it. It's just like there is a CSS inside the browser that anytime you use H1, it will apply that CSS for you. Then you can decide to change it on your own by adding your own extra CSS. So you see here now, it's telling me, just imagine now as I'm moving my cursor here, imagine what is happening to. So this box now is representing that element that you click here. And then if you are hovering your mouse, this is the content, this is the padding, this is the border, this is the margin. So I even made a mistake. This color is for margin. You see, there's a margin, there's no border, because as I am on border, nothing show. There's no padding, and then there's a content. Now let me go back and put a padding to H1. Now I told you about attribute. For those that were here, there is an attribute for styling, and you can use that for almost every element. Style is a way of adding CSS directly to any element. So just like we have attributes for language, chassis, but just know that this attribute depends on the element too. You cannot come and start adding chassis to H1, it will not make any meaning. Do you get it now? But style is like universal for almost everything inside a body. Good. So style is a way of adding CSS to only that element. Because if I'm adding this style now, I'm styling only H1. Not all H1, no, only this one in line 10. That is just what I mean. So I can say, okay, this one should have a color of green, and then it should have a padding of 20 pixels. Now, I explained this thing, but let me emphasize it again. I'm giving it a style. I say style is equal to, this is the beginning of the styling. Oh. The styles have, I'm applying more than one style. So I'm going to put the first style and then the value of that style. Because style cannot just be like name that is viewport. No, style have to be properties and value also. So the property here is color. Then I'll put column, then green, and then I will end it with semicolon, and then I will write the next one. So at the beginning, it will be difficult for you, but just know this is a very basic rule. It's just a way of separating each of them. Color green, padding 20 pieces. So you also have to understand how the units of measurement work in HTML. We have pieces, we have rems, we have EM, we have percentage, we have a lot of them. But pixel is like one of the easiest to start with. So I'm using 20 pieces. So if I save and I refresh, you see this guy now is green. And then I've given it padding. You observe that it shifted. Now, look at it now. I hover on padding. And it's also telling me that this guy is having a padding of 20 pixels. It doesn't have a border. That's why nothing show. But it has a what? A margin of 20.21.4. So this is you making use of your developer console environment. Like this developer environment is very, very powerful. So sometimes if something is not working the way you want, you can actually, the shortcut is just right click and click on inspect, you'll be able to see the elements, you'll be able to see the style that is applied. So sometimes when you style something and it's not working, if you come here, you may see that that style you are applying is being overridden by something else, or you have not, the style is not working because you made a mistake. So you can come here to inspect it. All right, so enough of that. So just open developer console, play with it. If you give it some time, you also learn some of the few things that you need to know there. So okay, I've taken time to like explain the style to you. So just know it. Style is a way of adding CSS to just one element directly using the style attribute name. The other way is in the head or any other place, but it's advisable within the head, there is what we call style element. You can add a style element here, and in this style element, you can say H2 should have a style of color red. Save it. Now, the disadvantage of this is it's going to apply it to all your H2. If you have 100 H2, it will apply it. But that is an advantage because sometimes you want all your H2 to look the same, which is good, right? But just know that whenever you are adding a style, here is going to apply to everything. I'm digressing to explaining some little CSS for you now. That is why if you are adding a style that you want it to only be for this first H2, then you can give this H2 an ID. You see, an attribute. Almost every element can be given an ID. Just say ID equals to what? First, or no, give it a meaningful name. So you can just give it an ID of blog, latest blogs. And then now you can come here and say, okay, I want to apply this thing to H2 that have an ID of latest blog. Save it. Come here, refresh. I made a mistake somewhere. Mm, am I forgetting CSS? Who can tell me the mistake I'm making? Oh? Yeah, so I got it now. Ash is ID, right? Ash. Okay, latest blogs. Oh, I didn't spell it correctly. So you see, computer don't know whether you be good or you be learner. So you see the mistake, I didn't put S, right? Okay, so let me try. So it's working. So just know that if it's not working sometimes, now you do mistake. No be computer do mistake. So now I'm saying, okay, I can just say hash. So some of these things I can't teach you. That is just the truth. See, like play, we are about 1 hour gone. So there's no way somebody can sit you down to teach you this thing line by line, one. It's not possible. You are the only one that can learn this thing on your own. So there's what we call CSS selectors. Selectors will help you to know how to select a particular element you want to apply CSS to. The style will always apply to only that element. ID, there should be only one ID in a whole page. So just know that if I put ID latest blog, there shouldn't be another ID here, latest blog. There should be only one ID in a page. If you want to apply that style to more than one, maybe this first two H2, maybe there is another section here, right? There's another section here and it's also H2. And this one is hot blogs. I want to apply styling to only the first two to be red. I cannot give it class. Class is for group of elements. Do you get it now? So I can give it class and say maybe I'll just give them first uh, first blocks or something. I don't know. Just give it anything and then but the CSS way of styling a styling a class is using dot. For ID you use hash, while for style you use dot. And then if I save, refresh, you see only this guy because only him have this style class. But now I want another person to also have that style. I can just give that person also the class. It doesn't have to be H2 any element. Just know it. And then I refresh. You see these two guys have the same style. So that is where class comes in. So don't just give class to everything. Just know that you are giving class most of the time when you want two or more element to have the same styling. If it's only one element you want to style, you can style it inline directly using the style like this, or you can give it an ID and come and style it inside the style element. Good. And then if you want all of the same elements to have the same style, then you can just write their name and say section. All sections should what? All sections should have a border of 2 pixels, solid, green, and then all of them should have a padding of 20 pixels, and all of them should have a margin of 50 pieces. You see, this thing is English. Forget that at the beginning you have to be learning small, small rules. But you see, I'm writing it like I'm just picking it, isn't it? So I'm saying all section because I didn't give it any class or ID. That means I'm applying this styling to all section. This is section, then this is where the styling starts. This curly bracket is telling you that this is the beginning of where their own style starts. And these are the three styles I'm applying to this section. And I'm separating them by semicolon. That is all. You save it, you come and refresh. You see we have three sections, and you see the three sections are here now with border green. It's English. There is nothing magical here. It's straightforward. So if you understand it, you'll be coding as if you are just speaking English and it's working. All right, so I think I've explained enough of it. So this H1, this first heading now can have a paragraph. You see, just like English essay that you are writing, you have a main heading, subheading, then a paragraph. Then the paragraph will now be this is, I can just type Lorraine and Visual Studio will just put a dummy text for me. So this will now be the P. Each of them will have a P. If I were you, you just observe what I'm doing. Sometimes I'm using Visual Studio to my advantage. I'm not writing angle brackets. Do you observe it? I just put P and press tab. It will complete the angle for me. Because those angles, you can make a lot of mistake if you don't know how to type. All right, so let me close this browser developer controls. So you see, I just created a simple blog post. Do you get it now? It look ugly, right? But that is how you can start styling them one by one. So I have just given you what sometimes is difficult for you to learn on your own. Use meaningful element name, one. Don't just use element because don't use H1 or H2 because of the sizing, two. And then structure your code. See it like do the architecture, rough structure. Carry a sheet of paper, draw what you want to do, give split them into different sections probably, and then start working at one section at a time. Though if you have the patience, you can use CSS to make it look like this. Do we get it now? I can use CSS to make it look like this before I start working on each section. There's nothing wrong with that. But I think I've explained enough. And then if you want to, the third way of applying CSS to your page is by creating a different CSS page. You call it anything.css. If you create a different CSS page, in that page you can decide to style anything. Let's say I want to style the paragraph. I want each of the paragraph to be bigger. Here they are very small. So let me make them a little bigger. I can come here and say all the paragraph should have a font size of 25 pixels, and then they should have a color, or they should have a background color. You see, I'm just starting it, then it will be filling everything for me. Let's say I want them to be gray. Just start typing it, it will complete it for you. And then if I come and refresh here, nothing work. Who can tell me why? I know we have some guru here, so somebody should know why. Perfect. The HTML doesn't know that you created another style. Do you get it now? Even though this HTML is what we are displaying here, this style is not yet displayed, it's not linked to this HTML page. The browser only know that there's a HTML. It doesn't know that this guy exists. So you have to link it. And how do you link it? It's advisable to link it in the head. I will explain again. But just do link, and then it will, there are different attributes for link, but I'm going for the CSS one. So this is a link. You see, it's called link. Why? Because it's used to link a resources. You are linking a resources. This in this case, you are linking a style sheet, and then the source. Where is the style sheet? That is where the href comes in. That day I was explaining something. I said, please go and learn path. There is a class, there's a topic for path. Learn path. The path will help you to know where to put the location. In this case, both of them are in the same file. So they're in the same location. So I can just put style.css. The name must match. And then if I save and I refresh, you see the styling work. Do we get it now? Now, there's what we call hierarchy. That is one thing with CSS. CSS, the full meaning is cascading style sheet. These styles are cascaded, means they are in hierarchy. These styles here, this inline styling, always have the highest priority. So even if I label style H1 here now, I style H1 here. This H1, what did I give it? Color green. So let me say the color here is red. Let's see whether it will work. You see the H1 is still green. But I gave it red though. It's not a mistake. That is what they call hierarchy. This style, the inline one, will always take higher precedence. It will always override any other one, unless if that one have importance, which is a hack and it's not advisable. Do we get it now? So don't always use important unless if it's compulsory. Just follow the rules. That is better. Do you get it now? So this style will always have higher priority, and then followed by this one. This one that is already inside the document will also have higher precedence before you talk of the one that is in a different file. Now, the way you link it matter. If I call this guy now and I put it at the bottom of my page and save this guy too, and I refresh. Okay, still work. I don't know why. Okay, why did it work? I guess probably At the beginning, probably it won't work, but later on to apply it. I don't know how. But the rule here is it's supposed to it's rendering line by line. So when it's displaying this P, it has not loaded this style sheet. So style sheets are advisable to always be in the heading, and then JavaScript will be at the bottom. That is just a basic rule. Do we get it now? Because the code is working line by line. I feel probably there's a caching here. Something, maybe the browser cached this thing. If not, it shouldn't work. But that is just it. So the order that you also add your style, like which one come first, also matter. So that is basic rules that we should learn. So understanding these little rules will save you a lot of headache. You will come to enjoy coding. You'll just be coding as if you'll be doing HTML as if you are just playing game or catching phone. It will not be that frustrating the way some people make it to look. I think I've spent enough time. So let me give you guys time. So today is just very basic, please, because we have a lot of beginners. So I don't want to jump into something too advanced. I just wanted to explain very basic thing. Uh, I believe a lot of you guys are already going through it. So go through all these elements, try to play with them, create your own stuff. At this stage, I expect you guys to start cloning basic sites. It's not like you do everything, you are doing static. So even if it is is it Wikipedia or anyone, I don't know which one. Anyone, something like this. So something like this. Try to just design something simple like this. This guy is very simple and static. Copy and paste the text. There's no rule that you have to type it. You can copy and paste. But just try to structure it to look something like this. The main thing you are learning here is how to design and structure elements, because this guy I did here now, they are not structured, right? I just did them anyhow. But you can use CSS to change their orientation. For example, now I just did everything, blah blah blah. But under normal circumstances, I'm supposed to say, okay, you know what? This head, this main should have a style, and the width probably should be 50%. The width for this guy should be 50%. Um, this guy is 100, this guy should be 50. And after the main, I think we should have the aside. The aside should have a style of width, probably 20%. Then I don't know, probably you can have maybe more than that, 30%. I'm just trying to explain that we can use CSS to structure our our sites. So I put this guy here, then I put this guy. This guy doesn't have a content, probably that is why we can see it. So let me give it a H4. I don't know if so. It's still at the bottom, right? That is because their display is still block, even though it is a width. So this guy should be display inline block. The display should be inline block. Mean you want it to occupy just the inline, just the space it needs, but it should cover it as much as it can. So this guy should also have display of inline block. So this guys generally take time. So you see at this stage now, they are both side by side. So this guy is longer than this. That is because this guy have more content. I can take it to the top, but those guys, those things are things I feel you should just play on your own to understand. So is there anything somebody wants? Any question? I think we've taken enough time. So any question in these basics? I think I've covered most of the basics I need to explain here. So I think on your own, just read 5 parts, and there are some things that are very that are not common. So computer code, I can't remember ever using it. Entities or symbols or all those things, they are rarely used. So sometimes just read them and understand, or just read them for reading sake and jump sharp sharp. Don't kill yourself over some things. I expect you to go through the basic elements. Uh, Table is very important. List, blocking line, all those ones are important. And then layout also is very important. It will tell you, explain the structures of your code. So exactly. So this is something I was trying to explain. This is example of layout. So head, nav, section. So use meaningful meanings and element. Then form is also important. This graphic, I don't think if you reach form, you don't try. If you just jump, go start to do CSS. Some of these things are advanced things that are rarely used. So once you've studied up to form, you can stop there and then look for maybe how to clone this W3C, or look for one site that you can clone, style it to look close to what you are seeing. And that is enough, because you hardly use me, I never ever use this one. For example, if I'm looking for something at that time, then I'll go and look for it. Medias and all those ones are important, but they are not too commonly used until when you need it. So don't kill yourself. After you reach forms, you can jump and go and learn CSS. And also the CSS, you cannot finish them. So it's probably learning this first section of CSS to this side and stop. This advanced one, don't kill yourself, unless in the future you will definitely go and go back if you want to perfect your CSS. But if you ask me, I can't do most of the thing here. I don't even know them. So that is just the truth. So learn HTML up to form, learn CSS this first section only. Then JavaScript is what will give you money. I'm not hiding it. People will, I don't think anybody will pay you for HTML and CSS. It's when you know JavaScript. So that is why at this stage I expect most of us to be wrapping up HTML, CSS, and we go to JavaScript. This is where the main programming starts, and this is where you start making it more interactive and more fun. So thank you all for your time, and I think we'll bring this section to an end here. Any question? I can hear you, and nobody is talking. Like, any question? Wait, are you guys sleeping? Okay. Are you using computer or first? Are you using computer or phone? And so if you are using computer, you are using Visual Studio Code, this particular Visual Studio Code. So where do you usually click on run? Maybe you will show me separately, because I can't find run in my own. Okay, this run here. You can't debug HTML generally. HTML is not like your programming language. I've never tried it, so you see. So I don't even know that you can even click on run. Okay, that is serious. Well, the way Honestly, I've never used it. So I'm just confessing, right? I've never used it. I didn't even know that you can click on run. And so some of these things are new things that even me, I don't even know. So, for example, I do something, change here. Let me see. I don't know how it works. So if I refresh, and but look at it, it works. So I don't know. So the easiest way for me is I usually save it. I'll just go and open the file, double click on it to open, and then I will refresh manually. There's what we call live server. Live server is a plugin or an extension that you can install that immediately you save. Like here now, I can come and say live server. Is it live server, right? Yes, live server. So this live server, let me just show you guys, maybe to help you guys. Um, if I install this live server, if you come at the side here, you will see extensions. If you come open the extension, just type live server. The first one you see there, you click on install, it will install it for you. Now, if it install, you need to close your Visual Studio and open it back again to that place. Now, when you open it back, what live server does is that it will create what we call a development uh, it will create a development server for you. I just don't want it to be complicated. That is why I didn't introduce it. But it will create a development server for you whereby you can run it. I can't even remember how they run it. Okay, at the bottom here, you see there is what this click on and go live. So if I click on it, it will start the live server. But now you see it is running it on local host. That is port 127, as in this IP, port 5500 slash hello.html. Now the advantage of using live server is if I edit this guy now, alright, I don't know where I want to edit. Maybe this hot now. I say I want to give it a style, font size of 50 pixel. Immediately I save, mm, it will refresh by itself. That is the main advantage. You see, I did not come here to refresh it. And then what I just changed work. That is what that is the advantage of live server. It automatically refresh it for you. So immediately you save here, it will update the browser on for you. So the way some people prefer to work is they will open this guy small here, right? It's just because I'm showing you people, that is why my own is big. I can make this guy small and it will be in just one side. I can put it one side here. Then I can put my screen to also be one side. And so as they are doing it here, they are seeing it, you are changing, you are seeing. It's faster that way than even clicking here, go back, click, go back, click, go back. So you can be developing it here and seeing the result here. Do you see it? I say hot dogs, right? Is equal hot and blog is equal to this. Where is it? I can say, okay, here, give me color equals to blue. I save. You see, it changed to blue. So it's faster that way. Some people prefer it. So just look for what works for you, and so look for live server and read about it, please. Um, so any other question?
All right, so you guys should please keep it up. Um, you'll be learning a lot without knowing, so just keep it up. The opportunities will definitely come if you know it. Uh, so success is when opportunity meets preparedness. So when the opportunity comes and you are prepared, then
it will help you to be successful. So at this stage, I expect you to be cloning a lot of things. That is the best way to learn. Clone a lot of things. Clone Nairaland, Wikipedia, Nice.com. Is it Nice.com or what did they call their site? All these new sites, basic things. Try to just do something like this. Do you see? This is just the header. This is an aside. This is another aside. This is the main. You can add picture. You can add title. You can do all this type. So this, even if you will not do all, just do this first section and let it look like this. And come and share it on the group. Hey, only styling this menu item. Do you know you will learn a lot by just designing this menu item at the top? There's a lot of things you will learn. So please just spend so much time styling. And after maybe this week we enter, we expect us to switch to JavaScript. If you already know JavaScript, uh, just let me know. Probably I'll just show you how to just start maybe using React or learning React. Because if you know JavaScript, you still have to learn the framework. In real world environment, you will not use pure JavaScript. It will take a lot of time. So you will use framework. You already know the JavaScript. The framework is just to make it faster when building application. Somebody can do the whole of this thing with React in a short time. And if you want to use pure JavaScript, it will take years. So that is just the difference. So I think that is all. Okay, so this is our guy, 16 years software developer. The guy now is a celebrity. Okay, any question? I think time has gone though. All right, so in the absence of any question, thank you guys and wish you all good night. All right, thank you too. Bye.